Welcome to the Churros y Tácticas Podcast. This is Kiyan Sobhani, and I am joined by the great Diego Lorijn to talk all things Spanish football on a Monday that has followed a big derby win by Real Madrid, a narrow escape against Levante from Barcelona, and some very interesting Champions League and Europa League draws. Diego, my friend, how are you doing?
Good, man. Good. Like I was just saying before the pod, finally off of the meds. The 3 antibiotics have been taken for the past 2 weeks. They have now come to an end, and I'm so happy, man. I'm like 5-6 kilo less as well, so I got to say that's always good before the holidays start. I want to keep it though. I was at 84 kilos. I would always swing from 83 to 84 kilos. So I'm 180, right? I think that's, what is that in like 5'10"?
I don't know.
In inches? I'm not exactly sure. I was always like, 80. Like if I was 82 kilos, that for me was like, okay, wow, good. Like the 70 something I haven't been that for decades. Now I weigh 78. And man, it's like I don't want to see 80 anymore. I want to keep it this way. So like a change in diet and lifestyle as well, I'm now adapting to. I was always kind of working out, you know that, Kiyan. We would talk about it, like doing like HIIT sort of high intensity interval trainings. But like, you know, eating at an earlier time, all those things, like cutting drinks out until the weekend also. And I'm not saying I was like, you know, drinking heavily, but yeah, like a beer a day wouldn't be odd for me. And that's, you know, at a certain age that takes a toll when it comes to your weight, obviously. You know what I mean? No snacking. I'm just trying to be more healthy, more strict. Yeah.
Snacking
that ought to do it.
The number one, like snacking in itself. If you're disciplined, it's fine. But snacking is really the worst thing for me because you're not conscious of how much time passes by. You're not conscious of how many calories you're consuming. You're like, you read the label, you're okay, like 100 calories per X amount. Oh, that's nothing. But then you don't really know when you pass that amount. You don't know when that 100 becomes 600. And then you're done for the day because your body's like, okay, all this sodium, all these empty carbs. And so now it just starts calling out for more junk. So snacking is a big one. Yeah. I feel like, you know, a lot of people talk about like you got to be disciplined and stuff, which is true. I feel like for me, and I think this holds true for a lot of people, I'd be very surprised if people listen to this be like, no, I'm a robot. I'm not human. I don't need that tool. I feel like everyone needs tools. So my tool is intermittent fasting works. Like doing like not eating until later in the day. Big one.
Exactly. I was going to say, explain that to me because I've heard the term so much. And for me, it was like at some point, I think there was a dude that would wake up at 3 a.m. and just stuff his face with ridiculous foods and not eat for another 24 hours. And he was calling it, what's the exact term again?
There's an OMAD diet, which is 1 meal a day, which a lot of people do that. And I do that quite a bit too. Basically the tool behind it is like, intermittent fasting in itself is not what promotes it gets you to kind of restrict your calories and make you lose weight. What it just does, it's a tool for you to limit your calorie intake to what you need to eat. So if like for my window, it's not uncommon for me to go 23, 24 hours even sometimes without food. And then I just eat my calories in one sitting. Or if or basically because I like to focus on my work. So for me, work, if I eat food, then I can't work because my mind starts to shut down. I'm like, I can't focus for some reason. I need to have like, just be fueled by water, tea, coffee, kind of club soda type stuff. But if the moment I ingest calories, my brain just kind of like gets lazy and I want to sleep and it's not as sharp. So I usually don't eat until I'm basically done work for the day or like after, you know, when the kids are home, we have some supper together or whatever. And that's just a good way.
So you don't get like a dip in energy. Like you don't get like if you don't eat that you miss that intake. Because what time would you be taking in calories in the morning? They're going to set you up for the rest of the day and night.
No, I usually eat at like 5 or 6 p.m. and then that's it. So I don't eat all day. And part of that is also because I don't need to. So if I'm working, and especially if I'm working out of the house, I go to coffee shops or whatever, do my work, I'm walking around. My mind is not really thinking about food anyway. So I don't, it doesn't bother me. But the moment I start, like, I'm the type of person who, like, if I eat something, that means I need to eat more. I can't just settle with like an apple or like a banana or a sandwich. I need to like go all out. I have to eat. So that's why I just don't. I just save it for the later in the day.
Okay, but I mean, wow, that's pretty extreme. And because all this time that you're explaining this, I'm thinking, and I know I make a lot of fun of you on this podcast, but you wake up at like 4 a.m., 4:30 a.m.
Not anymore. Basically, after my second child, Arlo, was born, that my sleep schedule was like, I need to sleep. So I sleep in a little bit to like 6 or 7 usually now.
Okay. Well, that's a little bit more heard of, a bit more decent.
More decent.
A bit more. I mean, it's like we wake up at 7 reluctantly, might I say. It's just not because we willingly want to, but because the kids wake up. And obviously during the week it's like school and shit. So
yeah. I mean, and once you have kids, kind of like that stuff gets changed. Like you don't cross time zones, I think, as much as I do, because you don't need to. You're in the Mecca. But for me, like, when I would go to Spain, and I was like in Spain almost every weekend, basically before the pandemic, or at least every second weekend. And it was just such a weird feeling because I would cross the Atlantic. And so I was already waking up at like 4 or 5 a.m. And then you cross time zones, and then you just go to a game, and then you just don't really know what sleep is. And then it just suddenly hits you. So I would have these days, if like I'm in Spain just for a weekend, I arrive Saturday morning, I just pass out, and I wake up like Saturday night, walk to the stadium, and then like I'm back home Monday. It's a really, really strange feeling.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is weird. That is really weird.
Very strange. Okay.
Well, fascinating, man. That was Churros for the day. Have a great week, and we'll chat Friday.
Patreon.com/Churros y Tácticas if you want the actual football content. So let's talk about the Champions League draw first and foremost. And we might as well take a patron question now. So usually we save these for the end, but we'll kind of trickle them in a little bit earlier if we find that it fits into the flow of the conversation. And this directly came in after the Champions League draw. So our patron, Sergio Arispe, which, by the way, if you want to get guaranteed responses to your questions, you want to get questions into us, patreon.com/Churros y Tácticas. You also get a bonus pod on Friday, which is only available for patrons. And pretty soon, Diego Lorijn and I are going to start a churros cooking show. So you'll be able to. It's called Cooking with Diego and Kiyan, and we're just going to stand there in our chef's hat and just bake different flavors churros.
No, it's going to be called Cooking Churros.
Cooking churros, yeah. And we also will be using different flavors, like from Diego's garden too, to kind of enhance the flavors. So, Sergio Arispe says, hey guys, do you think that this Champions League draw is another sign that this will be Messi's last season at Barca? First a reunion with the only person that could ever be considered his rival, and now a reunion with an old best friend. It's like the stars and planets have aligned to show Messi Barca is no bueno. It saddens me to think about him leaving, as Messi was not only the reason why I got into watching football, but also the main reason I became a Real Madrid fan. However, would also like to see him shine again. Keep up the excellent work. Keep the churros tasty and the tácticas on point. Interesting. I've never heard a story where a Real Madrid fan becomes a Real Madrid fan from watching Messi play. That's interesting.
No, that's true. That is definitely true.
So the question is, I don't know. The question is kind of like, will this be Messi's last season at Barca, and does this draw enhance that? I don't, that question in itself is, in a way, it leads to more interesting questions, such as, the headlines kind of write themselves, right? Like, we don't have to write the headlines here. The headlines are essentially...
so many headlines in this fucking game.
Yeah, the headlines are essentially, will Messi be playing for PSG or Barca when this... which obviously is more of a joke than anything, and we're not talking in the realm of reality here. But how did you feel when the draw was made and you saw PSG? We knew it was going to be difficult pretty much for Barca regardless, right? So it's not like we were surprised that Barca have a difficult opponent, but PSG in particular, how were you feeling?
I mean, there were, only hard opponents, and then there were some worst case and less worst case scenarios within that realm, right? And I think that PSG, if not the worst case, for me that would have been Bayern. would be like the second worst case of teams that I would not want to face. Maybe third Man City. But anyway, and what's interesting to me is, and that's why I was listening so intently to the question and statement as well from our Patreon, as well as your thoughts behind this, because I think the narrative of this story can go so many ways, and at this point in time, the way things are today, there can be so many things written. There's so many subplots within this game. The obvious ones, obviously Neymar, Messi, the future of Messi, the friendship between the two, the past history between the clubs, the fact that the last time these clubs met, it was the most historic Champions League comeback, perhaps in football ever. I could name you one that would top this one. It was remarkable and also hurtful for PSG. So this has got revenge. This has got the end of an era also written all over it, and but also perhaps the beginning of a new. And that's why I say the timing of this is so important and will dictate the narrative, because when this game will actually be played, the election will have already happened, and there will already be a new board. Obviously, recently, the elections will happen the 24th, and meaning that once a new board comes in, if this game gets played this mid-February, right? I think it was the 15th, if I'm not mistaken, just after Valentine's. I don't remember, but
I'm not sure.
They'll just have been voted in since like a week or two or three. They'll have had, if all goes well, 1 week to make any, if any, decisions to acquire, make changes or acquisitions during the winter market. Where will Koeman's Barca be then is un incognito. We don't, you don't know. It could be a lot worse. It could be kind of the same. I'm doubtful whether it'll be better. And also looking at, with all those factors that are currently facing against, that Koeman has faced with and is against this current club and this group of players. And also, again, like I said, where you can get in the winter, I don't see an Edgar Davids, for example, Kiyan. I don't see a player, that can come in and have the sort of impact. Because, Edgar Davids, let's not forget that obviously when he came in, I think Barca were like 15 points away or 18 points away from Madrid. At the time, they were like 7th in the league. Obviously, they had Ronaldinho. They had old pieces like Saviola, but they had new pieces, obviously, in like Ronaldinho. The midfield, I think, was Cocu. Who the fuck was in the midfield again? Well, obviously, Xavi.
Well, and kind of like that was before really Xavi became Xavi. Obviously, that was long before.
It was before Iniesta.
So it was kind of a transition period. Bottom line is,
but my point is
Davids' signing helped you catapult to second in La Liga from having a disastrous campaign.
Exactly, yeah. And you look at the names that are floating around, the Eddie Garcias, the Depays, and you just don't see them have an impact like that, enough of an impact to make this team really fight for silverware. Therefore, come back to the initial point of the question. How do I see this? I just see this tie, Barca PSG, as a way that could potentially cement the fate, and the real end of one era with Messi at Barca. And let's say, we see Neymar and Mbappe sway Messi enough to join their ranks because of the game. Maybe there's some sweet talking here and there. It could be a humiliation as well. Like I could see Barca get absolutely humiliated in that game as well. I don't know how this tie is going to swing. And let's just say, as I've been known for, I think on this pod, I kind of fear for the worst. So I'm not looking forward to this.
Okay.
Finish on that.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So these games are being played. The first leg is being played in February. The second leg is being played in March. And just like every single draw that we're going to be talking about today, the rule applies across the board. Who knows what any team will look like by then? It's our guess. Yeah. It's a guessing game, especially this season where there are so many variables. You have no idea who's going to be healthy in a couple months' time. Neymar, who who had a very bad ankle injury over the weekend, it seems like
it doesn't look too bad.
It doesn't look too bad, which is good news for everybody. We want a healthy Neymar. And so he'll be fine. Unfortunately, Ansu Fati will not be back.
No.
Right? I mean,
no.
maybe outside chance for the second leg, maybe. But
maybe
we're not going to count that.
Yeah.
So here's the way I think we frame this discussion. And by the way, I think Messi will be a Barcelona player by then. And if he's not, and if you, just to make it clear, the rules state.
Who says he wouldn't?
I don't know. Just people floating this around. Like,
oh, okay.
I don't know. But just like the joke, it's like a half joke because I just in case anyone actually believes that he'll be a PSG player by then, he's not going to be allowed to play for them in the Champions League. So it's not like we're going to see Messi versus Barcelona. And by the way, that's interesting in itself. If that happened, like after this draw, it almost like it would be even weirder now if Messi went to PSG during the winter window.
Wait, during the winter mark? Is that what people are saying?
I've seen it float around. That's all I'm saying. I'm just making it clear that there's no chance.
I get it.
Yeah.
If let's say Barca does get an offer, obviously it's the last few months that they could actually cash in on his contract. So, or let him walk for free at the end, which I think is what obviously going to happen. They'll save his salary. But if they do get an offer and it's PSG making an offer, that would be very awkward. That would be so. He wouldn't travel with the team for sure. Like he would not. He would. It would be very weird. Plus,
he wouldn't be in the squad.
He wouldn't be able to play.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah.
Just Messi, when you leave Barcelona this time, please do it properly. Like, make sure you have the legal things in place. Don't try to leave like after the time has passed and you're not allowed to leave yet. Just leave. Just leave when you're supposed to leave. You have the best lawyers in the world. And if you don't, then just buy them. Buy the best lawyers in the world. Don't do this again.
Be like a 2 minutes to midnight transfer in the winter market. They seal the deal. That would be hilarious.
So if the game was played today, I think that's the way we pretend to have, or we have this conversation. We pretend all these games are being played today, and the players who are available are available. We're not gonna like get into hypothetical injuries and stuff. Just the way that PSG plays, and the way Barcelona plays, and we're gonna get into their scraping by Levante, who ironically Lionel Messi's goal. Barcelona created enough great chances to score like 3 goals in this game against Levante. But Levante, like almost every team does against Barcelona, have like 1 or 2 chances. You're like, holy shit! Like if that's a better team, that's going in. Like this was almost a Madridista wet dream in this team against Levante because the 2 big chances fell to 2 former Real Madrid Canterano players, Dani Gomez and Jorge de Frutos. Both point blank. And I didn't watch this game with a tactical eye, I'll be very honest. I watched the Villarreal Betis game in the morning, then went and had a nice family dinner. But we had it on in the background, and we were kind of just following all these chances. Me and my dad were watching it. And those 2 chances of de Frutos and Dani Gomez, we were like pulling our hair out. But we kind of knew what was going to happen, and that Messi was inevitably going to save the day. Or at least that's the way we tried to kind of play it in our head so that we could jinx it somehow. But those 2 chances, Barcelona didn't defend Levante particularly well. By the way, I do think Araujo is an interesting, good player. That's, I think, a bright spot in defense. But, the variable of, like, who's healthy, Umtiti, Langley has been uncharacteristically in bad form. And he's been a player who I've really liked for Barcelona. I think he's been reliable, even if he's an annoying person to play against. But he's a really good defender. But of late, he's been making all these weird mistakes. So what version of that? So anyway, my point is, if Neymar is healthy and Mbappe is healthy, that, and Barca's line, they haven't really kind of played a deeper line. And they haven't really played a different style of play against anyone they played against, and that line will be very vulnerable against an attacking force like PSG. So it's not inconceivable to me that it gets ugly. We'll put it that way. Do you feel that way? And also the second leg being in Paris with another variable that by March maybe we'll see fans in the stadium in France too. Which may or may not be like the main talking point of this, obviously, but I just think that this one is like I said, I didn't expect any really, unless they drew. What was the one team that was like going to be like kind of okay if you drew them? But the rest were like either Bayern. Yeah, even Dortmund would have been tough. But I mean, Dortmund have their own problems now too. So I think that just offensively speaking, and also the variability of your backline, like is Umtiti healthy? Is Longley in form? Is Piqué healthy? How is Mingueza going to respond in a big game like that? Araujo, and also Alba's defensive struggle. So all of those things coupled with PSG's attacking ability. And they've also kind of gotten the Champions League monkey off their back last season, I think. They played so well in the Champions League, maybe apart from the final. So I think they've gotten their monkey off their back, and could get ugly, I think.
Well, they're the subcampeones, right? They're the current second place holder of ¿cómo se dice subcampeón? Like the second place.
Is that a thing?
No.
Is that I've never heard that as being a thing. Like
no, that might be just.
It's like a conference title. It's like an Eastern Conference title.
Yeah, I guess second place. It's the second place. But I don't know what to think of PSG, quite frankly. I mean, they're not a team I regularly watch full matches of, so you kind of base your interpretation what I see from highlights and what I read about them. When you read about them being a team that haven't found their form yet, you see how they're doing, in the French League and Ligue 1, the fact that they're third, the fact that they've, draw matches against Bordeaux and then obviously lose against Lyon, etc. So you wonder if they're just saving it for the Champions League because let's be honest, who really cares about Ligue 1? I'm sure that Al Khalifa is not getting warm thoughts about winning the French League again, but everybody's eyes set on that club will be on the Champions League. I think anything less will be, it's hard to say deemed as a failure, but we've seen coaches already, Tuchel be questioned by winning everything and missing out on the Champions League final, and his name got put on the chopping block as the potentially, moving on already. My point being is that, what are we going to get from that? Offensively, they're a PlayStation team. Verratti in the midfield, but surely they've got their weaknesses. Like that, you have to expect that a team like Barca, who also, when you look at the squad in and of itself, they're PlayStation players, right? You look at De Jong, Griezmann, Messi, Busquets, Pjanic, etc. They've got interesting tools there, interesting players. Dest, I think, is still, just continuing to. I don't want, maybe not impress in the last match, but certainly was still the player that was on my radar that I think had a solid performance. One of the few. De Jong was, with the permission of Messi, for me, the best player on Barca. So there's things there that on the day, it is football. Barca could cause some damage if this PSG team really haven't found their form yet, and they're having their own maybe internal problems. Who knows? Where am I going with this? I don't know where I'm going with this. Well, but I guess I'm saying is that Barca have a chance.
Well, here's what I also want to say, because you said PSG are like PlayStation.
Offensively.
But even in watching like Neymar, when I watch Neymar play, I feel like I'm watching a video game, like a real life video game, because just the stuff he does is almost like watching at times like what LeBron was doing in Miami, like at his peak, where he's just like, it's like you just roll up the field and just press square or whatever the dunk button is, and you just dunk over everybody. And you just pull up for three. Just watching Neymar like do what he does, especially in the Champions League when things are a little bit more at stake. It's like watching a video game. He's like an unstoppable force. Like you watch his hat trick over last week. Just some of the goals he was scoring were unbelievable. And so I always felt, in a way, Neymar has become almost underrated in just that when you watch him play, I don't know if there's anybody right now who's just better at getting the ball and getting from point A to point B at will. He's so good at that, and I just think like whether it's Des or whether it's Roberto or whoever it is, or if he goes to the opposite flank or he pops up centrally and becomes interchangeable with Mbappe, that's so hard to defend. And whatever weaknesses they have in midfield, and by the way, like when Marquinhos kind of steps into midfield with Verratti, their midfield suddenly gets organized in big games, as we saw last season.
Marquinhos has been good, yeah.
You know, it's a tough one. But again, who knows what Neymar will be doing in February.
5-1 when they beat Istanbul. With all respects to Istanbul, you know, like you'd hope that Barca's defense is solid enough not to get crushed. I mean, Neymar, these. That's my whole point. Like, these kind of isolated moments are the ones that you see, that I see at least on the highlights, that obviously llama la atención, right? And like brings your attention, or it makes you, it makes your ears perk up and your eyes kind of light up. But I haven't seen Neymar for the full 90 minutes in Ligue 1 playing week in and week out, and I basically just see PSG, what I've seen from them in the Champions League, and again playing teams like Istanbul in this case. So when you look at their regular form in the league, it's less than impressive, you know. So and again, based on what the experts are writing, that this team that haven't found their form yet, they've got formidable players, but if they have some weaknesses, then I have to think, my optimistic side here, that Barca stand a chance to, make it. And it's crazy, but yeah, at this point, if Barca beats PSG, it would be considered an upset. So, I've got to cross my fingers for a potential upset, but, I could also fear, I also fear the worst.
I hear what you're saying about the opponents that were kind of taking this, we're talking about Neymar's performances. And there's no real counter to it in the fact that, they play who they play in Ligue 1. In the Champions League, their opponents haven't been that great, although, Leipzig, Manchester are good teams. Depends on how you spin that, I guess. Leipzig for sure. Mm-hmm. But we can also go back to last season, against Leipzig, where I don't remember the exact number, but he had broken a record for amount of completed dribbles and nobody could stop him. And so we can't also pretend that Neymar can't do this in big games against big opponents. And when you say Barca's defense a little bit better, sure, but I don't know if it's good enough to,
I don't know if Piqué is going to be available, but you imagine a backline with, Dest, Piqué, and
Long
again,
way.
I'm dreaming here maybe, but, who says Enrique Garcia won't be brought in the wintertime? I think Barca will make.
I mean, you want Longley instead of Eric Garcia in that game anyway. More reliable. Yeah, for sure.
Are you joking now?
No. I mean, it's still even despite Longley's kind of form, he's still more reliable than Eric Garcia, I think.
I don't know. I would have to. I mean, right now, Longley's form. I mean, the poor guy. Huh? I'm not trying to bully him or nothing, but I think his confidence has been shot, and he's just he's in a bad funk right now, where just things aren't working out, going his way. And I think he feels it. I think it's part of this whole dynamic within the team. Things that can go wrong will go wrong for some. It's Murphy's Law. It's I believe that to be the case. It just my gut feeling, Kiyan, is bringing me back to the Gaspar era, and that era where you had coaches like Serra Ferrer be put in out of in emergency. Even an emergency president came in at the time. What was his name again? Reina, I think it was something. And things was just going bad. It was just awful with Van Gaal, everything. It was just the house was crumbling down. So that's a kind of I guess just the history. You say how history repeats itself, or we have to learn from history, and that's just my historical memory of a similar time as that, and it's not good.
PK is probably going to miss.
What do I get from on this topic, this depressive topic, by answering a simple question about Barca's defense? You see what I'm saying, man?
Well, that's
when
what it is.
When you see me go down this dark hole, please stop me, because I just depress myself talking.
PK is, I think, going to miss the first leg, although maybe if he recovers quickly, he'll be back in time, but probably be back for the second leg. So, some thoughts on Real Madrid versus Atalanta.
Right.
I'm happy.
Well,
Yeah, you go.
Okay, I'll go. No, you go.
Okay. Well, so I think it was good to avoid Leipzig. I mean, that was the most difficult opponent. And while I think most Real Madrid fans rightfully would have preferred Lazio or Porto, I think Atalanta is not a bad place to fall, given that Leipzig would have been the alternative. And again, like you and I think spoke about this. I think it was on Friday where Mr. Chip put out the mathematical chances of drawing each team and who they could draw. And Leipzig was more likely to be drawn against Real Madrid than any other team possible.
Yep.
And again, I don't know the math behind it, the science behind it, but I was like, okay, Mr. Chip says it, I accept it. So I'm happy that Leipzig weren't drawn. I think that would have been, I would say, a tactically more challenging game than Atalanta. So I guess what do I mean by that? Well, one, I think Julian Nagelsmann is a genius. I think he is a brilliant analytical mind, tactical mind. I think it doesn't mean that he would beat Zidane, but it just means I think that would have been possibly, and I think the science and kind of the data and the performances would add up to this, that would have been more challenging. Atalanta, I think, are interesting because there is a degree of variability to them. They are good offensively and not good defensively, which I think suits Real Madrid. It suits Real Madrid because I think, as we've seen this season, two things benefit Real Madrid, okay? And it benefits them from a mental side of things too. So these two things are not necessarily tangible. One thing that benefits Real Madrid is an open team. Okay, so what we've seen from Atalanta in games past, but also last season, whether it was against Ajax, whether it was against Liverpool this season, their defense no es bueno. Okay, and they open up. That gives them some attacking output offensively, which may or may not suit them, and I think can be detrimental to actually getting them to the next round. But if they play that kind of brand of football, I think that really benefits Real Madrid because they have weapons in transition and they obviously fare better in that situation. And I would say this, despite Atalanta being a pretty good team defensively, I actually trust Real Madrid's defense in a game like this to step up because it's been, all things considered, their defense has been good. Maybe not the seasons, but kind of generally speaking, over the last calendar year or so, they've gotten much better defensive transition. And if the Atletico game is anything to go by, the Mönchengladbach game is anything to go by, they are certainly up for raising their defensive game in big games in the Champions League, which I trust. Atalanta, for all the good offensively they are, I don't believe they're better than Real Madrid offensively. They don't create as many opportunities as Real Madrid do offensively. They don't create as many shots. They don't create as many goals. So I'm happy with this draw. I think this suits Real Madrid. Again, who knows what state the team will be in February, who's healthy, who's not. Big one is obviously you want Ramos healthy. That's key if you want to deal with a good team offensively like Atalanta. But I'm happy with the draw.
Well, okay. Interesting to hear your perspective, and I'm kind of surprised that you haven't, expressed your opinions or your thoughts on really the big elephant in the room, for me at least, and that's the fact that right now Atalanta, and I didn't know this beforehand, I have to say, I confessed last time that what I see from Atalanta are mainly what they play in the Champions League as opposed to, the off highlight from the Serie A. But they're an absolute shit show at the moment. They're in complete turmoil. The fact that they were already ninth at the time, I think that now they move up to eighth. Last week when we were talking about them, I mentioned, they're ninth in la Serie A. No pinta bien, no bueno, como dices tú, like how you would say it, no es bueno. There's also a massive divide in the dressing room between Gasperini and Pablo Gomez.
I saw that this morning.
Right, and that's for me, reading about it and kind of how deep this division is and how it's been affecting and how open they are also about it at the moment. They're just venting openly, and it seems to be getting worse. I talk about dynamics. We have just been ranting about it for the first half hour of the spot about Barca. well, the dynamics there do not seem good whatsoever. So how is a team? How are you going to get some sort of cohesion and togetherness and fighting spirit to overcome a team like Real Madrid, who's now resurged? Thanks to goddamn their. I don't know. They say a cat has 9 lives. I don't know how many lives Real Madrid has, man. They're like the saying should be, whatever saying you have for the cat having 9 lives, it should be Real Madrid having infinite lives. Like that should be the new go-to cinnamon.
The new go-to cinnamon.
or
that'll be a good flavor for our first cooking episode.
But no, seriously. I mean, look, it hasn't been a month that Real Madrid has been playing well. It's been a week. It was a good result against Sevilla, then Mönchengladbach, and obviously now like 3 match balls that again Zizou won. Real Madrid. I'm not saying they're not looking better. They are. But you guys won these matches with not really breaking a sweat, I have to say. Atletico, the derby was the disappointment. Again, that I mentioned on the last podcast. I said I hope that this is going to be playing out one way. At least we're going to see a competitive Atletico, because more often than not, you alluded to it as well, how like Atletico just doesn't show up in the Bernabeu or the Alfredo Di Stefano in this case on these occasions where sometimes when they play at home, yes, but the way it's just it's more often than not disappointing. And again, that derby allowed Real Madrid to rebound and kind of really change. They're in the title race now. The hunt is on. Champions League, good result, easy opponent. So if we're going to see this team picking up steam, we can expect them to compete, for anything. And Zizou, when pressing up against the ropes, comes back and has delivered knockout punches. And we see this in the Champions League. Well, fuck. I mean, the odds are. Let's just say that the setup for it is very good. Again, this team at Atalanta, I don't think can pose much of a serious threat, added to all the things that you mentioned, because of all. It's just not the Atalanta that we saw in the last season in the Champions League edition, or in the City Out for that matter. So, again, and the same factor applies, right? Where will they be come mid-February? But again, no pinta bien, no es bueno, and in Real Madrid's case, it's on the up, and that's an obvious, right? That's a fact. Things have turned around over in Camp Madrid.
Yeah, we'll see. Again, February is a long time away. I feel good about this draw. So I thought when you were like surprised with what I said, I thought you were going to spin it in a different direction and say Atalanta are better than you think. But you span it in the opposite direction of what I thought you were going to spin it in. Inside Atlanta are worse than you think. So either way, I'm not going to disagree with you. The turmoil there, like behind the scenes, but also, again, their defensive variability, like conceding 5 goals against Liverpool, but also beating Liverpool 2-0 and beating Ajax away, beating Fiorentina by 3 goals yesterday. High degree of variability, but I don't think... I think this suits Real Madrid much more than Leipzig does. So
second league in the Bernabeu, obviously, right? And maybe with home fans, and also in Spain at that point.
Maybe. Should we take a question about that now?
Sure.
Our patron David Bayer says, "Do you all know when fans are coming back for La Liga? I tried Googling it, but couldn't find anything substantial." Oh, you want me to take this? Okay. Tease, man.
No, because you mentioned before you mentioned that you heard or you read up on what Tebas had to say. No, I mean, listen, what I let's say heard around the campfire was that mid-February, around that time, or a little bit later, I think it might have been March. Potentially, there's the case where they might let some, small selection amount of fans back in. But since you have the word of Tebas, I was waiting for you to jump on this one.
Yeah, my word of Tebas, like my exclusive of just reading what he said publicly a couple of weeks ago, really. His plan was to by 2021 start rolling out fans, and the idea was to do, let's say, about 3,000 fans. Now, I don't know, like, I think probably the smarter thing to do was, like, rather than putting a number on it, it's better to put a percentage of basically how many seats are available in the stands, because ultimately the goal is to social distance, right? So if you put 3,000 fans in the Alfredo Di Stefano, is much more different than putting 3,000 fans at the Camp Nou. Obviously, the thing is, it's not up to La Liga. They proposed it, and the government has to approve it or disapprove, right? So ultimately, it depends on the government. And what Tebas said was that, it could be easier in certain provinces than it is in others. So, we're talking about the Canary Islands. It's more under control. From what I understand, I could be wrong. From what I understand, it's more under control there. So it could be easier. It might be approved in those markets more than in maybe the other cities like Madrid and Barcelona. So, I think that's the answer. I don't think there was an update since then.
So no actual month. I mean, you just said 2021.
That's what I had seen. So if you had a month, then that's more information than I know.
I did. I thought it was February, potentially March. But again, there was no confirmation clearly. Otherwise, it would make headlines everywhere. But mere speculation. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I think Chelsea probably got an unfavorable draw getting Atletico. Certainly, basically any first place team that would have drawn Atletico in this situation would have felt, kind of unlucky, and Chelsea falls in that role. I think just shifting our eyes to the Europa League for 1 second, I love Real Sociedad versus Manchester United. I saw a narrative floating around that Real Sociedad are unlucky to draw Manchester United. I beg to differ. I think, well, maybe they are unlucky. Who am I to say? But I think just from a Spanish football perspective, I'm really excited to see something like this. I think this is the stage where Europa League gets really interesting. I love to see what Oyarzabal can do against a team like Manchester United. I'd love to see David Silva in a game against Manchester United. I like to see kind of the measuring stick of how these players will play against a team like that. I like that the pressure's all on United. I like this draw. I'm very excited to see it. And this, to me, is when the Europa League gets interesting. I've watched too many Europa League games this season, which involve Dundalk and Ludogorets and CFR Cluj. So I'm excited to see some of these bigger opponents now. So that's basically my concluding thoughts on the draw.
I was just thinking it'll be Januzaj facing his old club.
That's right. Yeah.
So he could be very motivated for that. Yeah, that's a good one. You would have to fancy Real Sociedad for that, huh? You kind of hope.
Maybe I wouldn't rule it out for sure. Did you see Barrenetxea's goal on the weekend?
Yeah, I did. No, but remind me now. I saw too many flashes of all kinds of games, even second division. What was it?
How do you describe it? Well, a ball basically falls at the almost the corner of the penalty box, and Barrenetxea just volleys it.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe it took deflections and stuff, and that's why I went in. But the replay is it was so clean and powerful. It went through everybody undetected, didn't take any deflection, no save, and then in off the crossbar. Just really, really one of the goals of the weekend, if not the month, if not the season. Just a spectacular goal.
Love that. That. And the sound as well. I need to watch that back because I need to appreciate that in its full. Kind of I felt similar the way you described that when I saw Carvajal kick, or I should say Oblak's own goal.
Stupid own goal.
I know you love that. But those clean kicks that and then rattle against the bar, the sound of the ball hitting the bar is, I get a kick out of that. I got a kick out of that as young. Sometimes I would have preferred to hit it against the bar than the back of the net. So I just loved it. It was oh!
That's why they have the crossbar game, because it's satisfying to hit the crossbar.
It's satisfying, yes. Yeah, well, look, man, I mean, for... what else? Atletico? Did you talk about Atletico or no?
We haven't talked about it. I just glossed over the Chelsea thing. We haven't talked about the derby yet or Atletico in really any meaningful way. So do you want to... any thoughts on the derby or Atletico or the draw or anything?
I mean, in resumen, really, in just summarizing it, it was kind of as expected, where we saw a shadow of Atletico's self. I think kind of culminated or characterized best by the way Joao Felix had approached this game, the awful game he had. And Cholo's frustration on the sideline was something that was so, for me, telling with how, basically things were just not. Cholo was not getting from his team what he wanted at any moment, and you saw that by the frantic substitutions. And like I said, it kind of culminated when Joao Felix got taken off so early in the 60th. But like I said, kind of expected as well, because you could see Cholo just getting furious on the touchlines, screaming at him by the kind of like the aimless passing, the bad passing as well, the bad association with his teammates, Coque, Herrera getting frustrated. There was the odd run there was the odd run, but he would get taken down easily. It just frustrated me. And what frustrated me, as well, was obviously seeing the way that the players came off. When you see Joao Felix come off and kick up such a massive fuss, but also Luis Suarez, what was it, later in the 70-something minute, just ironically smirking. And it's like, dude, you're shit. You did not do anything. Like, we saw nothing of Suarez.
I did not notice him on the field at all.
Zero. I think
Joao I noticed. Joao I actually understood the frustration, because Joao I thought was good and he was noticeable. But Luis Suarez, I did not know he was on the field.
You thought Joao had a good game?
I don't know if anyone had a good game for Atletico, but at least Joao did stuff. Like, Joao was able to kind of escape pressure. He was able to progress the ball up the field. He was fouled heavily after doing one of those.
He wasn't, though. He had no pressing up the field. His actions were meaningless. He was pushed off.
Meaningless is a bit harsh, but I think. Listen, it's not like Simeone taking Joao Felix off. It's not like. I think he obviously is going to get criticized like crazy for doing that when you take off Joao Felix
and put on down a goal.
Kondogbia came on for Suarez, didn't he?
For Suarez, sorry, yeah, for Suarez.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. I mean, look, but here's what I will say about Simeone's subs. I think Saul had an impact who came on for Joao Felix. Now the question is, could you have had Saul and Joao Felix, and maybe Saul would have helped Joao Felix? That's one thing. The other thing,
Lamar and Saul were okay.
The three subs he made at halftime, Lamar, Lodi not so much, but Lamar. I think Lodi was helpful, because in the first half, Carrasco struggled against Vasquez and Carvajal. The combination of Lodi and Lamar was better for them against those two Real Madrid players. Lamar missed that huge chance, but he also brought probably more to the table than Carrasco did. Again, I don't know if that's the fault of Carrasco. I don't know if it's the fault of Felix. I think maybe if you had kind of set it up structurally but differently, you could have helped those players. But his subs did have an impact more than the starters did. But I still question, like, could you have taken off somebody else for Saul? I think Joao Felix is too good of a player to not have on in your team if he's healthy, if you're chasing a goal. I think his brilliance can come through on one play. I think that matters. That would have mattered. But again, ultimately they had the chances to get back in this game, and Lamar missed a chance, Saul missed a chance, and Real Madrid came through.
For me, it was like, again, it was noticeable to me how increasingly frustrated Simeone was getting at the touchline. And when, the substitution eventually happened, this is like, you just don't do that to a manager. You don't do that to the boss. You don't do that to the person that has been at the club way longer than you and has brought in a whole much more silverware than you did. And you can't, be so disrespectful in your frustrations when you're just having a shit game. Like I said, for me, Luis Suarez was having a very bad game and should have been substituted potentially earlier. He had, again, I don't remember any significant runs or touches or anything of him. Certainly no chances.
No, nothing.
So therefore, you're substituted, and you got to It might sound like a silly point, but for me, Cholo was right to make these substitutions, and then seeing that attitude towards Cholo, I just hope, I guess, it's not going to get worse, and we're not going to get, a sort of a divide, and because this is it for Atletico. If they cannot become champion this season, then forget it. Then I don't see this team becoming champion again for quite a long time. I have a feeling like if a divide between Cholo and Joao happens now, you see Joao, leave to the Premier League or some other big club in a matter of time and a short time for that matter. And this project that started off so good this season finally could potentially implode in no time. So it's better for them to just either discuss it openly or what, because I would hate to see and I said it, right? Didn't I tell you, Kiyan? I still believe, even if Atletico loses to Real Madrid, that they will be that they are the current champion of the current La Liga season. And I still think that will be the case. I hope we don't see that go away.
In defense of Joao Felix's reaction, it could have been more of like, so if I'm taken off in that situation, I'm pissed, and I can...
And yourself, because you had a shit game.
Exactly. Yeah. Maybe that's what he... Like, when I could go off in the stands and start kicking objects and chairs and stuff, and that could be directed only just to release frustration from my own performance, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to necessarily be directed towards Simeone. Mm-hmm. So but
the way it is being interpreted is a clear disrespect to Simeone. Whether that again is the sort of narrative that is by what you read and what you hear in the papers, right?
Well, Simeone just said after the game, I understand that he was frustrated. Like, it was understandable. I would have been frustrated too. I don't know if it was directed at Simeone, I guess is my point.
Well, I mean, did you see Suarez though?
Yeah, Suarez.
Smugness.
Suarez, I will. With Joao, I'll be biased and defend him irrationally more than Suarez, and I will find justification for Suarez to be wrong here. So yeah, Suarez is unacceptable behavior.
Luisito.
No, I genuinely, when he was substituted and I saw him smirking and leaving the field, my reaction was I forgot you were in this game. I forgot. Yeah. Which is completely different than my experience of playing him in the Clásicos, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah. All right. So, do we need to hit on anything else?
I mean, we're cutting it short, but if you want to give a shout out to Sevilla, obviously, the fourth Spanish team. My question to you, Kiyan.
Yeah, that's disrespectful. We didn't even talk about them.
My question to you, I'll put it this way, and then you can talk obviously about Sevilla. Do you think, or how big is the chance that we could potentially see 3 of the 4 Spanish teams being knocked out in this initial round of 16 knockout games? How serious is that?
Who are the 3?
Well, you tell me. You tell me.
I think there's. If I had to guess, I think 2 advance, and I think it's Atleti and Real Madrid.
Yeah. I don't know if hopefully, I hope to be able to include Atleti in that.
Chelsea have been really good offensively. Yes, I think Atletico can take that space away. I think I think they have the ability to make somebody like Timo Werner really uncomfortable. For example, I also think Sevilla Dortmund can go either way. I'm not ruling that out yet. Yeah, Dortmund just fired their coach. Well, who knows? Maybe by February they'll have figured out a bunch of things. Dortmund have, like Atalanta, can be highly variable. I don't think Sevilla are favorites, obviously, but I don't rule it out either. If I had to guess, I'd go 2 out of 4, Atletico and Real Madrid. But what you're suggesting to me is also possible.
I mean, I don't know. Dortmund, I mean, the Haaland factor, I don't know. For me, that just tips the scale. Not knowing much, obviously, about...
Don't rule out a Koundé masterclass.
Well, of course, and that's what I mean. Not knowing so much about the defensive frailties of Dortmund. Obviously, they are well known, and worldly renowned at this point for their offensive striking power. Something that with Sevilla is just simply not the case. So I adopt the young guy's philosophy, saying, okay, all we have to do is score one more goal than our opponent. And given those variables, those factors, for me, it tips the scale, and I don't think we will Sevilla advance against Dortmund.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would probably lean maybe 60 or 70% in favor of Dortmund, but I think Sevilla could possibly, they have enough in the tank. The question to me is like, Luuk de Jong still continues to struggle scoring, and Nesiri has been in great form. And Sevilla are not a very creative offensive team, but Dortmund are not a great defensive team either. So that could balance itself out. So I think we haven't exhausted it because we've barely touched on the league. But I think given that this podcast was more going to be about Champions League draw reaction, plus maybe Derby plus Barcelona Levante, I think we hit everything we need to hit.
I mean, real quick, Atletico Chelsea, how's it going to end then? Or your overall? So your total, so your away and home and away results.
Yeah, I think this is going to be something like a 4-2 for Atleti on aggregate.
Interesting, on aggregate.
Yeah. I think they will frustrate Chelsea's offense. And I think they will nick a goal, and then eventually as the tie opens up, plus Atletico away goals at Stamford Bridge, Chelsea will start chasing the game, and then they'll open up and concede the fourth and a nail in the coffin.
Let's see.
I'll record this. I'll record that segment. Keep it in the backlogs of the laptop, so that if that comes true, I'll post it and be like, "See, I told you so." And if it doesn't happen, then I'll just delete the file.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's see. I mean, it could happen, I guess. Chelsea seem to also be going through their own little eternal wars with what's his name, Kai something, the $80 million kid, not really working
Kai
out,
Havertz?
and and Timo, etc. I think they lost to Everton, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe.
So
many things to know. Yeah, they lost 1-0 to Everton.
Yeah, right. So we could see, we could see. It could go either way. I hope it's not the case. I hope we can, see all three Spanish teams advance, and happy days to come.
Hey man, if Barca beat PSG, then all of a sudden this is a different discussion.
Yeah.
That's like a season-turning kind of watershed moment if that happens. If it happens.
We'll cross our fingers.
All right, Diego.
All right, boy.
This was fun. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Our patrons will be back. Patreon.com/Churros y Tácticas. If you're not a patron already, you should. If you sign up for an annual membership, which you'll see on Patreon.com/Churros y Tácticas, you actually save some money and you get access to everything we do, which is a win-win for everybody. And it's only $3 USD. So
there you go.
Pretty easy. I mean, that's really that's one. How many servings of churros is that?
When you get into this one, where you go to your coffee analogies, your Starbucks, that's one squirt of cream juice.
Cream juice? Oh my God. You've never been to Starbucks. Go to Starbucks and order a squirt of cream juice.
Caramel squirt with sprinkles on it or whatever the fuck.
I think I'm fuzzy on how much I pay for churros when I'm sitting at a cafe in Madrid.
Churros can a bag of churritos, 3, 5 depending on the size.
Euros?
How many? Yeah, you can get a bag of yeah.
It's more expensive than I thought. So
listen, there's some renowned ones that you pay your money for your churros for sure. I mean, there's lines of people waiting to get from there. And,
especially if you go to the tourist spots. So I'm just trying to see here. So if that's the case, then our churros are cheaper.
Right.
So Chocolateria San Ginés, which is the one I usually go to.
Yes.
Chocolate con 6 churros o 2 porras. €450. My God.
Well, there you go.
So here, basically, I'm just going to lay down the math for you guys, okay? For 450 euros, which turns out to be $550 US, okay? You get 6 churros plus a thing of chocolate.
A thing of a mug.
A mug of chocolate.
Chocolate.
An average churro contains 240 calories.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
240 times 6, 1,400 calories for 6 churros, plus a thing of chocolate, by the way.
Oh,
chocolate is pure calories and fat.
Damn.
Let's say this is about almost your daily intake of calories for, and plus your 450 euros, 550 in debt now. And plus you've just ruined your entire week of good eating. Okay?
We've just become anti-churros on this podcast. Do you realize?
Yeah, because
the churros podcast.
we promote the spiritual churros, not the physical churros.
Well, that means you've just spoiled my ilusión de comer, my excitement for ever eating churros ever again. That's the only thing that's gonna linger in my head now. You just finished churros for me. Thanks.
So for cheaper than that, and 0 calories, plus a lot of spiritual content, it's a no-brainer. No-brainer. Plus you get to help put food on the table for, I'll name the four children. Lorenzo Lorijn, Joao Lorijn, Luca Sobhani, Arlo Sobhani.
You're a legend. Yeah. Well done for remembering.
Yeah. All right. Enough guilt tripping. Love you all if you're a patron or not. Honestly, the show goes on with or without you. We love having you guys a part of this because we love sharing who we are with you guys. And Absolutely. We try to provide as much value as we can. And whether you want to support us or not, or you can or you can't, no judgment, just all pure love. There's no guilt. We're just joking. We just like to have people on this journey with us. And for those of you who are part of this, patreon.com/Churros y Tácticas. We'll see you guys on Friday. Diego, thank you so much. Take care, my friend.
Thanks, dude.
And talk soon.
Likewise.
Take care.
Peace.